When I first met Emma, I thought I'd finally found everything I wanted. She was beautiful, intelligent, and brought a spark into my life that felt irreplaceable. Our town was small enough that everyone knew everyone, but Emma brought a kind of electricity that everyone noticed, including me. I didn't realize then that this captivating charm would soon evolve into manipulation, so intense that it would nearly destroy me. We'd been dating for almost a year, both in our late 20s, still figuring out life, work, and everything in between. That particular night, we were headed to my friend Liam's party, a casual affair where the usual suspects were bound to show up. I was excited to introduce her to some of my friends, the ones she hadn't met yet. At first, everything was perfect. She was laughing with everyone, seamlessly blending in, and I could see she was enjoying herself. It felt like things were right where they should be, and that illusion was wonderful while it lasted. Things took a sudden turn when I noticed Noah, a close friend of mine, giving me an odd look from across the room. He seemed torn, hesitant, like he was carrying something he didn't want to share. When he finally beckoned me over, I could sense something was up. We went outside, where he could talk without everyone overhearing. His first words made me laugh in disbelief. He said he'd overheard Emma telling someone she was pregnant. Pregnant, I repeated, trying to wrap my mind around it. We had always been careful, and kids weren't even part of the conversation yet. That's not the worst part, Noah added, looking away as if the words themselves were toxic. She told someone it's her ex's kid. I felt the ground shift. Emma's ex, Jacob, was someone I knew of through whispers and passing glances, a guy with charm, looks, and a history of being a player. She had once told me they'd been a whirlwind romance that quickly fell apart. She'd assured me he was bad news, and that dating him was one of her biggest regrets. But now, here I was, blindsided by news I wasn't even supposed to hear. When I found Emma, she was still laughing with friends as if everything was normal. I took her aside, away from prying eyes, to talk. My mind was a mess, but my words were blunt, fueled by an anger I could barely contain. "Are you pregnant?" The question wiped the smile off her face, and for a moment, I thought she might faint. But then, she nodded, eyes filling with tears. "Yes," she whispered. The confirmation hit me hard. "It's not mine, is it?" She didn't answer, but her silence was answer enough. Eventually, she nodded again, admitting the truth without words. She was carrying Jacob's child, and she hadn't told me. She had planned to deceive me, to trap me into raising someone else's baby. A heavy silence settled over us, only broken by my voice as I asked, "How long have you known?" "Just a few weeks," she whispered, barely meeting my eyes. I didn't know how to tell you, Michael. Fighting back a storm of emotions, rage, hurt, and disappointment, I walked away without another word, ignoring her calls behind me. I needed space, and her apologies wouldn't change what she'd done. The following days were a blur. I ignored her messages and calls, desperate for time to process. But Emma wasn't one to accept rejection lightly. She showed up at my apartment, begged for forgiveness, and tried to explain. "I was scared, Michael," she cried. "I didn't want to lose you." Scared or not, she had made a choice to manipulate me, and I couldn't forgive that. I needed her out of my life, but she refused to let go. Emma's messages became desperate, then angry, then desperate again. She was everywhere, calling, texting, and showing up at my workplace. The escalation was quick and terrifying. Soon, her accusations were mixed with threats, as if my refusal to forgive her made her entitled to stalk me. Eventually, I blocked her number, thinking that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. She began showing up in person, lurking outside my apartment and my workplace, her car parked just close enough to make her presence known. My coworkers started noticing, whispering among themselves. It was humiliating. One day, she even screamed at me in front of the office, accusing me of abandoning her and the baby. My boss had to call security, and I could feel my reputation unraveling in that one moment. Finally, I had to take a stand. I hired Evelyn, a sharp, no-nonsense lawyer who helped me build a case for a restraining order. By then, Emma's behavior was spiraling beyond reason. Evelyn arranged for a paternity test, knowing it would clear my name and end the absurd child support claims Emma had filed against me. Emma's accusations had turned into a legal nightmare as she tried to paint herself as the abandoned single mother to our child, despite the fact the baby wasn't mine. In court, Evelyn presented our case. We showed the judge the messages, the obsessive calls, the stalking incidents. When the paternity test results came back confirming I wasn't the father, I thought it would be over. The judge granted the restraining order, and I walked out of the courtroom feeling a sliver of relief. But Emma wasn't done. She took her smear campaign online, creating fake accounts to post about me. She spread rumors around town, implying I had abandoned her and our child, and suggested I'd somehow bribed the court to clear my name. People I had once thought were friends started to believe her lies. The betrayal was layered, and I felt utterly isolated. One day, I got a surprise call from Jacob, Emma's ex and the real father of her child. He sounded tired, worn down by Emma's manipulations, and admitted he'd been a pawn in her schemes as well. He was now fighting for full custody, desperate to protect his child from Emma's unstable behavior. Jacob and I met for coffee, and we exchanged stories, sharing our disbelief at how far Emma had gone to keep us both ensnared in her web of lies. Together, we decided to make a pact to protect ourselves and, for Jacob, to protect his child. As I listened to his story, I realized I wasn't alone in this nightmare, and that gave me the strength I needed to keep fighting. Months went by, and slowly, the weight of Emma's control over my life began to fade. Liam and Noah stayed by my side, loyal friends who had seen the worst and still believed in me. Their support helped me rebuild my shattered confidence. I finally started to move forward, even as I remained haunted by the scars Emma had left. Then one evening, I got a final call from Jacob. He had won full custody, and Emma was legally barred from seeing both him and their child. The relief was bittersweet. Emma had lost everything, yet I couldn't dwell on her downfall. My life was moving forward, and I had to focus on that. As I looked back on the past year and a half, I realized Emma's betrayal had changed me. I was stronger, more cautious, but also determined not to let this experience define me. For the first time in a long time, I felt free, and that was all that mattered.